Hello and welcome to this review of the recent Income Protection Awareness Week, or IPAW, organised and hosted by the Income Protection Task Force. I'm joined today by the three co-chairs of the IPTF, and we're going to be talking to them to get their initial impressions and takeaways from the week's content. So Joe and Katie, can I just turn to you to start off with to get your initial impressions of how you thought the first ever Income Protection Awareness Week went?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, John, for having us today. So I think it's still quite fresh, given that it was last week, and we haven't had a big debrief session, but we can certainly share some kind of early learnings and observations. Absolutely, I think from my perspective, and I'll pass over to you, Joe, as well. I think we were really blown away with the engagement that we saw from the industry. We didn't expect it. You know, it's the first one. It was very much DIY, and I think it went better than expected. I think if we're honest, you know, seeing kind of over 600 unique registrations for the events throughout the week was just phenomenal, and we were really pleased that we were able to reach a number of advisors who aren't kind of that active in the protection space, and that was really our big aim for the week. So really proud of achieving that. I don't know, Joe, what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I would echo what Katie said. I think we started from quite modest ambitions of, can we reach one advisor and change their ways? That would be great. And it became apparent pretty quickly during the week that we were reaching advisors, which was the first hope. And more than that, that people were really engaging with the content, engaging in the sessions. We were getting a lot of inquiries about replay links and where can I watch this? Can I download it and share it? Which was, you know, beyond our hopes, I think, when we started this, but really great to see.
That's really good to hear. And just speaking of where you can watch this, I'll just give you a quick shout out. Just say if those of you who did miss anything, all the content from the week is available on the IPTF's YouTube page, and there's a ton of other resources available on their website to check out as well if you missed anything. So speaking of the content, and Joe, will stick with you. If I can just get you all to sort of give me your takeaways or what you thought was particularly valuable about the sessions you chaired. So Joe, you did the one on Tuesday regarding the mortgage protection space, or mortgage advisor space, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for my own impressions and what I've seen people reacting to, there were probably two key points in that session. One was Vincent O'Connor bringing along his mate, Angry Mike, who no one wants to meet. And that really being a reminder to advisors of why you need to include this and the consequences of not including IP in conversations when you're dealing with people taking out a mortgage. And the second one, probably where Vincent was a sort of incentive not to do something, Kate was an inspiration of why to do things differently. She talked about recognizing her own bias towards critical illness and the way she'd changed things up, and actually that had a really positive impact for her. So it was a great story that I think resonated with many.
Thanks, Sharon. Katie, you chaired the session on Wednesday, Wealth Wednesday, for the wealth advisor space. So what did you think was particularly insightful about those sessions?
Yeah, so I think kind of highlights for me, I think the keynote from Settle was fantastic, and I really like how, and I think the reaction's been very positive to kind of pulling out those key objections from wealth advisors around writing IP. So, you know, bringing the elephant in the room to the table, you know, saying essentially, you know, wealth advisors don't want to be seen as salespeople. And I think what was really good, I think, about the session was the bits that Settle covered were kind of backed up by real life advisors, wealth advisors who were doing this day to day, right? And they were kind of agreeing and yeah, also challenging some of what was said. So I think that I really liked that, and I think particularly Victor coming in, Daniel coming in, and actually giving their kind of experience as advisors and those sales tips, I think was really helpful. And then, you know, going a layer down, I suppose, into the detail. You know, Gemma sharing her cash flow modelling example was great. It's, you know, it's kind of real life, day to day. This is how a wealth advisor can actually bring IP into their financial planning conversations. So I think that's been received really well. And I suppose the last thing I'd say is, you know, what we wanted to do with IPAW was really unite the industry, so bring together not only the insurers and the reinsurers, but also the advisors and the networks, and that was really key to this. And I think that came out a lot in Wealth Wednesday and other days, and it was essential really, because I think we'd be missing those kind of sales tips and softer skills perhaps that we may have done if it was just the insurer and the reinsurer side. So I think those were some of my highlights from Wealth Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. Andrew, you hosted Thursday's session on claims and underwriting for IP. So what really stood out for you from that session?
I think first of all, the cast list. So we were delighted with who we got there, and I don't think that can be understated or underestimated to get, I'll say 5 or 6, my memory's not so good, a week on, of the leading people who really can influence what's happening in underwriting claims in insurers, to be a part of this, to be open, and to have listened to those talks that Joe and Katie have just spoken about and sort of respond to some of the points raised was I think can't be underestimated. In terms of the content of what they talked about, I loved David Banks from L&G's, I guess, assertions that we can't just rely on a claims department to fix claims stats or to do their best on claims stats. We all need to take ownership, from advisor through underwriting and into claims, to do our best to make sure this is a product that plays out as often as it possibly can. And I think that's, you know, that may sometimes be a grumble from the claims assessor's desk. So it's this kind of forum to be able to call out how good advice really does improve the chances of a claim being paid, and the happy outcome was exactly right. And again, I think the openness within the panel discussion between Alan Knowles, Craig Patterson and Anna Rogers around some of the issues that are still there, in the spirit of recognising and ongoing opportunities was really helpful and good to see as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think you guys finished off the week obviously reviewing some of the pledges you've had and taking a bit of a forward-looking stance on what's next for the IPTF. So Andrew, you know, you spoke a little bit about that on Friday. So, you know, it may have only been a week since IPAW came to an end, but what's next on the agenda for you three? Yeah,
this is one of those, it's a slightly hungover feel when you try and remember what you promised last night or last week, right? But we know we promised to help support people with their pledges and to promote the good work they do towards those. I think, frankly, you gave us a plug, we'll give you one back. On November the 2nd, Joe and I think I will be at the brewery talking about IPAW and the pledges and work that's already gone on those, hopefully in the first 4 weeks. And we certainly plan, frankly, to hold people to account to some of those ambitious pledges they've made, and to continue to have good news stories to tell, hopefully, as people do show the ongoing impact of the promises they've made. I guess more broadly and more generally, so the IPTF will be, over the next month, we are gathering, as you can imagine, as much feedback, not so much the emotional highs and lows, but some of the feedback as to ways that we could do things differently, better, if we were to do a similar event in the future. So we really welcome that. There's surveys gone out to everyone who's registered, but in the next 2 or 3 weeks we'll be getting together, as you can imagine, to really kind of go through that and decide what something like this could look like in the future if we were to come back to it again. So if not decided yet, but I'd imagine it looks pretty good. If for now, I can't give you that exclusive today, John. That's fair enough, Andrew. I should be the first to know once that decision's made. Well, thank you to you, Andrew, Katie and Joe, for taking the time to have a quick chat today. I think we can all agree, you know, for our first ever event, IPAW went really well, and really looking forward to seeing what you guys have next and where you're able to